questions?
Yeah, I have questions about the mental health side of it, because we deal with that
Oh, yeah.
almost every day.
Yeah.
So, since our hospital is closed, we now have to go to Defiance to the coping center. So would you be taking on, as far as inpatient, because the biggest thing that we saw is no placement for people with mental health, suicidal ideation, schizophrenic, all right, because we've had them, when the hospital was open, they would sit there 24 to 48 hours before they were even have a bed open.
Oh, yeah, 72.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and then, second thing was lack of transportation to get them there. A lot of times, we ended up doing transports
Yes.
to Toledo, or sometimes if we give them to the coping center, we left out
Yeah.
in Defiance. But the one thing, how about juveniles? Is there a chance anyone under the age of 18?
Yes, so I will have to look at the hospital. Typically how this is arranged, we have a great example of this in Tulsa. There is a wing for dementia. They separate them, dementia, geriatrics, eating disorders, it's very prominent, and then juveniles. And sometimes eating disorders and juveniles overlap a little bit, but more or less. If we can keep everyone separate, then we can offer those different entities. A couple of hurdles are sometimes the counseling services that go along with juvenile mental health are very unique and more niche and difficult to come by. But otherwise, a psychiatrist should be able to handle adolescent care. There is a fellowship for it. Is it necessary? Probably not, no. Especially when you're talking about limited access. So another example, in Oklahoma City, when I was covering an ER, I had to hold a patient child for 72 hours in an ER room, only to get placement in Dallas, which is 3 hours away. So it's probably more or less the equivalent of holding a patient here, only to get placement in Cincinnati or Indianapolis or something horrendous, right? Crossing state lines, just on the other side of the state. But we would essentially be a psychiatry, a mental health ER. So if you bring your patients in, even if it's drugs, you bring them in, we assess them, they're acutely psychotic, we call up to the floor, we admit them with admission orders, and instead of having to wait that 24, 48, 72 hours for transfer, you're in the place where they would get transferred to anyway. So we'll probably be accepting people for transfer from outside places that struggle with the same thing, the same situations that you're alluding to. So
Yeah,
it would reduce your burden.
Yeah, so you would have somebody on site that would actually do the evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
So we would no longer have to use so right now we have a service that's Guidestone, Ohio Guidestone, right? So we bring someone to the hospital would actually call that service in. And, we were waiting sometimes for 3 to 4 hours just for them to get there.
Yeah. So
And then-
I typically don't agree with those services. Have you ever seen one of those encounters occur?
Oh, yeah.
What are the credentials of the person doing the evaluation?
Just probably training, schooling, probably the lowest.
It's a counselor.
Yeah.
And so a counselor is less equipped to diagnose than a physician or an NP or a PA. And I've run into this specific scenario where a counselor someone came in and it was a younger person and they said, I'm gonna kill myself. I said, okay, that person just told me that they're gonna kill themselves if they go home. And so it was the hospital's protocol to bring in a counselor on an iPad and do an assessment, right? An assessment. And so they go in, close the door, they do their assessment on their iPad, and then I talk to the counselor again as the physician, and she says, okay, we developed a safety plan. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I would say anything that I could if I realized I was in trouble and I was gonna lose my freedom for a period of time, and I would tell them, I'm not gonna kill myself. And to come up with a safety plan, so.
You see that quite a bit, even with ER physicians.
Yeah, so we would not do that. So, like, if you say you're gonna kill yourself and you're otherwise lucid, the physician or mid-level, whoever, is going to we're gonna have a protocol for that, we'll have an admission orders for that, that person's gonna get admitted and stay no less than 72 hours in the inpatient mental health floor, so that we can make sure that we, put them through their paces, they talk with a counselor probably twice a day for each of those 3 days that they're admitted, and they're discharged, now confident that we've addressed whatever was leading them to the issue, we've started them on any appropriate intervention or medication that they need to help them get over what they're suffering with, and they have follow-up with the outpatient mental health and counselors that are available, because you can't just put the fire out and think it's gonna stay out. You gotta put the fire out, you gotta have follow-up, ongoing follow-up. So I feel like the model is pretty robust. It definitely addresses those issues. The safety plans, I don't believe in these scenarios, so.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like something similar to Defiance or you're doing with their coping center.
Yeah.
Because we could, now we can go there, the ER physician will look at them, and sometimes it's just a call up to the coping center
Oh, yeah.
and to the psychologist up there and saying, this is what we got, and we can bypass guidance them
Oh, yeah.
or doing any type of evaluation.
Yeah, no, it would very much look like that.
So,
You bring them in, you guys, part of your team will have a discussion with the physician or the provider representing the ER. And more or less, I have order sets built, and so we have a complaint, we put the order set in, and essentially it's just gonna start a process so the person gets taken care of more so than a cursory evaluation.
yeah, and there's some new law changes coming on what we call the emergency commitment pink slipping, which they're trying to
Unique
put
here, or,
for Ohio.
okay, is it?
So like I have the authority to pink slip somebody.
Oh, you should, yeah.
All right, so, and there's some new, training and some new laws that may be taking effect where we might have, a little bit more power with doing something, I'm not sure. They're trying to work on getting the training later this summer.
Yeah, it's probably because they had people that didn't have an emergency order of detention. And they had a
Yes, a
safety,
lot of it,
they had a safety plan, and they went home and. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, 'cause we would pick it, we would, get a lot of privileges that got for mental health evaluations.
Yeah,
But just listening to what you're saying tonight, I mean, we would definitely, this whole area is in need of mental health.
yeah.
Even as an attorney, I do a lot of abuse neglect dependency cases, and a part of their case plan was go get an assessment Ohio Guidestone, and it's not a
Yeah.
legit assessment at
No.
all. And that's a Williams County, like, we're always sending them to Guidestone or Shalom, and I feel like they're not actually assessments, so that could be something that we could recommend as well, that
Yeah,
they come here instead.
absolutely. So, because of your expertise, if I were an expert witness and someone told me that they had a counselor's evaluation, diagnostic with a treatment plan recommended, I'm gonna say that's outside of your scope. It's outside of your scope. You don't have MD, DO, NP, or PA after your name, and therefore it's outside of your scope. You provide an ancillary adjunctive service. You don't provide a diagnostic and therapeutic intervention service. So,
I'd say 90% of the time we see no further services recommended.
yeah, it's totally inappropriate. But we're doing this in Oklahoma and Texas. We're doing this in California. We have other hospitals reaching out to us as well to kind of reframe what a rural hospital can be, from a struggling acute care hospital to now robust inpatient mental health, where they're actually getting patients sent to them from outside hospitals as opposed to only sending patients out. So,
Will you be bringing your own physicians or recruiting? I mean, I'm sure you're aware, there's a pretty big doctor shortage in this area.
there is a doctor shortage everywhere, but definitely driving around and getting an idea of the landscape. So I'm actually in the process of getting my Ohio license so that I can alleviate the burden in this tough period of the hospital reopening. So I will probably personally be staffing the ER for a while. But nonetheless, I don't know any physicians. Well, I know very few physicians in Ohio, but it would be a recruitment process. But I can alleviate the burden until we get stable physician presence. My mental health director, however, he will also be getting his Ohio license, and he'll be able to provide some of the psychiatry guidance.
But I mean, you won't be able to staff it 24/7 within the first 6 months with you alone.
So 24/7 for, with this volume, I personally have done, 7 days. 7 days. There's typically a lull in, patient volume through the ER, at least between 10 and 4. But I'm not saying I'm gonna do that. I'm saying that I'm available to provide coverage if we run into an issue where we don't have sufficient physician coverage to accommodate. So, right now, I do anticipate probably using our nurse practitioners and our PAs as well. Of course, appropriate training. Our model is different, you know, what I've seen in the past is people will throw anyone with an appropriate credential in a setting. And that person probably isn't gonna be appropriate to handle everything that walks through the door, or rolls through the door. So we have intubation sessions, we've got central line sessions, we've got code sessions where we train everyone appropriately. Probably very similar to what your EMS and your fire crew do with, going mock encounters, to make sure that everyone's appropriately trained to handle emergency situations.
So we utilize locums, like I mean,
No, not locum, so, we'll actually go out and recruit for direct hire.
I mean, I know that sounds great, but even the biggest health system in the region is utilizing locums in community hospitals. No one wants to move to cold Northwest Ohio, Northeast Indiana.
No, I hear you. So we might be put in circumstances where we need to. A good friend of mine is a vice president of a staffing company. So we do have an in that way as well. As silly as it sounds, Indeed has served me really, really well. We get quite a bit of interest in Indeed. So, sometimes they're older physicians. They want a little bit of a slower ER, and then we get people sign up and it's kind of like right place, right time, or, we have the right description, or they come and they do it once and they go, man, I really like this, I like the community, and then we have buy-in from even the physicians. So, we definitely could be in a position where we have to use locum tenens, but, I can offset some of it, which will help out.
How long of a lease term?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. What do you guys think? Like a 5-year lease? 3-year lease? 2-year lease?
We were asking 10 from the last.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't see why not. I think that's pretty standard. 10-year lease, pretty standard.
Is it personally guaranteed by anything? Is the lease personally guaranteed?
Well, we'll probably have to get some investors to do a personal guarantee of a $250,000 lease. But
If it was 10 years, it would be over about a $3 million lease.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I can probably put it this way, the amount of money that we're gonna have to invest to get it going through year 1, will probably mean that we're not planning on going anywhere anytime soon unless the village terminates any sort of agreement. So on Mike's projections, year 1 loss was like $1 million. Now we can mitigate that through me covering some shifts. We can cut out, he overstaffed it quite a bit, but we can cut out his overstaffing, and then we cut out probably like $600,000. Still an estimated $500,000 year 1 loss, which isn't nothing. But yeah, just lots of resources. I mean, you have things like your EMR that you have to get signed up for. Those have minimum probably 2-year commitments. Getting out of those any time early would result in a penalty and a loss as well. So yeah, I mean, if we're able to work with the village and operations and management for capacity it definitely means that we're committed for a long time, and we don't have any, we aren't anticipating going anywhere, because that would mean that we made a commitment, significant commitment for no reason.
How many other hospitals like this have you done? And does the village always purchase the hospital with you just leasing?
No, so we have, in fact, we've got two other, projects that we're doing right now in Oklahoma. One's in western Oklahoma, the other one's in eastern Oklahoma. The one in western Oklahoma is, we lease, and the one in eastern Oklahoma is we own. Our corporate group, our corporate council has done probably 40 of these, and they're all different. It depends on, is the hospital closed, who owns the hospital? Sometimes the private ownership, sometimes they're county owned, sometimes they're in trust or other hospital authority type structures. No, it's just whatever works, whatever the city wants, whatever the body that owns it wants. Different circumstances lead to different structures.
Was there any interest from you guys to just purchase the hospital without the village's participation?
Not for this hospital. I'm so unfamiliar with Ohio that they would give me quite a bit of pause. But, certainly, what I have been thinking about is almost like a lease to own.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah. Yep, so if we get in a year 2, year 3, everything's going super duper well, then we get in a position where we lease to own, we pay back your guys' purchase price like plus 10% or something like that, then, I don't see why not. This was kind of thrust into front and center for us, last minute in the auction house. I called him once and he was like, no, we're not gonna entertain offers pre-auction. And then he called me back the next day and he's like, hey, can we get this done like in the next 7 days? I'm like, I haven't seen the due diligence, you haven't offered me a tour, like I haven't seen any of this stuff. But yeah, potentially if we had more time to go through a process like a due diligence period and understand what we're getting into, that may have been our first option, but given the circumstances, the best option for us is to lease the property, own the hospital license, operate everything, and then, next steps, we could think about like the lease to own option.
Your other facilities that you big cities, kind of, are your rural setting, or when I say this is rural?
They're rural.
Just like
This is
this.
actually less rural.
Yeah.
Less rural. So one of the hospitals that I did was critical access in western Oklahoma, had an average daily census of 0 to 1 swing bed, average of 3 to 5 in the ER. It's critical access, so the reimbursement's different, and so it was not being sustained even on those numbers though. But what we did was we did robust marketing, we did robust outreach. We ended up hiring some good older physicians that love the small town, they love the slower pace in the ER. And then we got, over the course of 2 years, we took the average daily census from 0 to 1 to like 12. And so you have an average daily census of 12 swing bed patients, each one, you get around $1,200 per day per patient. So you're getting, $14,400 per day with an average daily census of 12, and then you multiply by 365, so they're making quite a bit of money, like that, so. And that had a population of 1,100, or maybe, I think it was 1,100 or 1,200, Shattuck, Oklahoma. And then the one in eastern Oklahoma that we're doing right now is in Wagoner. That one has quite a bit larger population, so rural, but not this rural. And the other one's in Pauls Valley. We have one in that we've been asked to do in Maricopa County, just south of Phoenix. And then we have a larger one that's on the table for us in Antelope County, California, which is more or less LA County. And then, so we've got representations from all different, more rural, less rural, and this is kind of right in the middle. But the proximity to everything opens up so many doors for, the viability of several of the options that I outlined here.
Do you have any problem securing insurance contracts? I mean, I know that there's been some smaller community hospitals near here that have failed because they couldn't secure those insurance contracts,
Which ones?
like specifically. Parkview was one of them,
Parkview.
prior to Parkview purchasing it.
So, there's always issues with insurance. But as long as we can secure the major payers, with Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross, United Health, Aetna, you'll be pretty good. So the bargaining power comes with your patient census, right? And so we might struggle bus a little bit for the first year as our census grows, and then we can reapproach every year to these various insurances that might have caused us a problem, is to say, look, we're doing this much in census each year. Many of these are your guys' patients. We're gonna put a sign on the door that says, we're not treating these patients because you guys don't have a contract with us. So, and, year one, they might say, okay, you only treat 2 of our patients a year. And so, but then year 2, if we treat 200 patients of theirs a year, then it's a different conversation. So, we might not get it year 1, but year 2 and year 3, as the census grows and the impact on their immediate population becomes more significant, then we have more bargaining power.
So is that when you say something like that, you talk about like, here just recently, ProMedica was gonna drop our insurance that we have here for the village.
Yeah.
And, so they sent out letters saying they were gonna accept, medical mutual here last,
So,
and now they renegotiated, and now they're going to accept it.
yeah, so I had an instance
Is that what
recently.
you're talking about, something like that?
I mean, hospitals have insurance negotiations all the time. I mean, that's not uncommon, but they just didn't secure the, insurance, and people would literally drive past that hospital to go to the next one because that's where their insurance was covered.
Yeah, so they probably had a more favorable contract. So I've seen some contracts even with big payers like Blue Cross Blue Shield that's paying 25% of a typical physician fee schedule, which is crazy. You can't feed your family for 25% reimbursement of what you should be getting. Yeah, it's just, in your instance, what you said, and I think probably the example you're alluding to, they offered a ridiculous contract, something that wasn't even worth the time and effort. I have a little bit different philosophy. I view that circumstance as an investment, right? So I might lose my shirt for a year treating patients of a particular insurance, but then we're showing good faith, we're gaining the trust of the community. Now all of a sudden we have more of their patients and we can go back to them and negotiate, after we've lost a little bit because we put that investment in.
Have you ever had a failure, like when you try to bring up a new
We haven't
hospital back?
had a failure. No, we have not had a failure. It's because the model is very different. If we tried to just reopen an acute care hospital, we could do some things and probably mitigate some of the losses, but we can't turn around a hospital this quick with just trying to do the same thing that got them in trouble in the first place. So, and I don't know the whole story about what led to the closing. Obviously there's financial issues. Usually in rural hospitals, we see some degree of mismanagement of funds. And so I don't know if that played a role here, but all the recent hospitals that we've been involved in, there was a fairly robust mismanagement of funds. And, we don't do that, so we haven't encountered issues like this. But I think right now, especially with the cuts to Medicaid reimbursement, if you try to operate as an acute care hospital in a rural setting like this with neighboring larger facilities, you're shooting yourself in the foot. There's no way you can be successful. So, and then some of the other things that I like to utilize that other people don't is like, we really make our lab available, right? We go out and we're gonna bend over backwards for the community and say, look, we're gonna go to the nursing homes, we're gonna draw your labs, so you guys don't have to worry about it, your assisted livings, your clinics, your, everything that we can do, and then making the imaging, available as well. Honestly, you do it right, you're probably talking about another $1 million annually in revenue from those two services alone. So that can probably save quite a bit from quite a few hospitals from closing if you maximize those additional revenue sources.
Would you be utilizing the entire building?
Corey shared with me the plan to potentially utilize it for village occupancy. So I don't know the layout of the facility. I did a lap around it today. So I can almost guarantee you we're not gonna be using the entire facility. Some of the space it looks like is geared towards things that we wouldn't, I would love to promote, but if we offer too many things, then we can also get lost in the weeds, but probably wouldn't utilize those spaces. And based on what Corey explained, I don't think we would have any issue with splitting the space, because those are administrative offices anyway, right? Yeah, so.
What about the future growth of it though?
I mean, the future growth of the hospital would, more RNs, LPNs, and physicians are all gonna be on the actual medical floors. The immediate staff, administrative staff, probably is not gonna grow in size as much. We could probably have a lot of it off-site if there's an issue with common space.
So the future growth wouldn't necessarily turn into a full-scale hospital like it used to be then?
No, I think, well,
Where
I
you
don't
would have
know
to
what,
utilize you would need all that space.
well, you're talking about administrative space, right? Places that were used for,
The old hospital, yeah, the front half of it, that was their administrative area. That's what the village is interested in, relocating all of our offices
so where I
to that
see it,
section.
where I see a lot of the growth is gonna be to, offering more primary care services, outpatient, more, specialty clinic services. And so I think that area is gonna lead to growth, but I don't know if the occupied spaces is gonna be the same space or not. So,
It ends up breaking down to about 10%, right, Corey? That the village would be interested in.
Yeah, the old hospital's approximately 27,000 square feet.
But we didn't need all 27,000.
We could utilize it.
I know at one point in time, you had talked about like 10 to 14, but you think that 27?
Yeah, so the old hospital's about 27, and I think we would utilize that old hospital, just the front half, not back in the 96 portion where the doctor's offices are, just the main office areas up there, the old ER, the old patient rooms that CMH had for offices. We wouldn't, we personally wouldn't utilize Health Fit. Originally, we talked about utilizing Health Fit, but, there's been a lot of interest in people wanting that to bring Health Fit back.
So that's a third of it, right there.
it's probably too much.
And really, I'm not interested in moving down there, my office, because I have to answer to security issues with leads, NCIC, stuff like that. So, you can count me out of it if you need to, because I'm not interested in that move.
But you think taking 27,000 for our space, you think that's too much, you would need more of that area?
Again, I haven't seen the.
Right, you haven't been in the building.
Yeah, I haven't been in there. So I'm 27,000 square feet is a lot of square feet.
Yeah.
That's well, I mean, you guys really need 27,000 square feet?
Not if they don't go, no.
Well, but I would be curious if they don't go, I guess. I thought this was all of us finding a central location, so that they're not interested in going, or they're not required to go, then is this something we really need to pursue?
Well, we've talked about that, we've talked about this for a long time, about trying to bring in 3 entities, getting rid of 3 older buildings.
Right.
To be housed under one roof.
Right.
You know, I knew Chief wasn't really excited about the move and stuff like that, but, you know, with this council, as final say, with the direction of where we need to be in it, with security and different things like that, you'd have more bringing infrastructure improvements for security and measures of bringing in.
I would have to do
things
it,
like that.
because I've already talked to Leeds, they would have to do a site inspection to even see if we could even move there.
So
So,
one time we would, to be honest, we were talking, they would be maybe down more by the health area, right? But we have entities that kind of want to bring that back to health.
yeah,
You know,
that's what I'm saying, if you know, that's why I'm putting it out here, I'm not interested in moving, you know, so if you need that space, you know.
27,000 square feet, that's a lot, I mean, that's,
I think it's 27, I'll double
I
check
thought
my
it was-
numbers.
I
but I mean, for you to say we need that much space, I mean, that's all of our first and second floor elementary classrooms at the school, that's right, 25,
I'll
26,000
double check
square
the
feet.
square foot, it's been a while since I looked at the file, but what I'm saying is that old hospital, that would separate us from everything else. So we don't have people wandering around back here in the ER area. I mean, we'd be in our own separate building. Because there is, 3 buildings down there.
Probably like a walkthrough and say this is the space that we want, these are the people that we want. and what was
After this, I can show you the floor plans of it, so.
So I think allowing for, like clinical growth, but not necessarily administrative function, as long as we can accommodate the clinical growth to a point, there's gonna be a point, that Hicksville will support. But yeah, it could be an issue, I don't think it would necessarily be an issue though.
I guess I don't wanna see the whole village, or village offices moving down there, and then it comes to the time that this thing is growing, is really taking off, and you need additional space, and if you can't get that additional space,
Yes, yeah.
and we had moved all of our office down there, you know, because I think we all have the same idea, we're looking for some type of medical facility here,
That's first and foremost,
Yeah.
for sure.
you know, so.
But with your plan and how you're structuring this, what type of growth, I mean, you kind of projected certain growth levels, and you're in an area where you're really, you said not familiar, right?
Yeah, not familiar, but doing, cause I don't know how do you play with Mercy? I know there's a relationship there, a little bit. How do you play with Brian? Are they friend or foe? Are they open to collaboration? How is this gonna affect EMS? I don't think EMS is gonna cause or there's gonna be an issue with EMS. What's the community's overall, opinion and stance on the hospital? And is any sort of bad taste gonna be left in their mouths when it reopens? So like, what kind of adoption are we gonna see? And just the overall tone of acceptance for the hospital reopening. And that's more or less what I mean. I'm not really familiar with the area, but the demographics, the population density, the catchment area, all support a fairly robust rural hospital.
Yeah, and you mentioned the, potential lease to own.
Mhm.
So then again, that wouldn't work for us either. If we moved down there in 5 years, you guys wanted to buy it out from us, we don't want to lease from anybody. We would want to, we want to own our own facility.
Well, I mean, could you treat it like a parcel and, parcel it out, and if it's fairly well defined, then,
The way it's set up, that portion of the old hospital is kind of tied into the 96 portion, so there'd be a lot of work to be done
Yeah.
to separate it.
So it might not work, to do a lease to own, it might just be a lease to lease, but.
That or, you guys have the whole thing to yourself and we stay put.
Yeah, or.
You can build it.
Lease to own, you can have.
You want to build it?
No, I mean,
They wanna do
I think we can all agree,
Around
if it came down to us
Around
moving,
would build up.
and, if we're not moving for them to do something, then
Yeah.
we'll stay put, hospital, healthcare for, first and foremost,
What,
100%.
what would you think eventually, like minor surgical? I know Dr. Growthhouse and minor surgery, that was a big
Yes.
deal.
Yeah, so years 3 through 5, we would focus on reopening the OR. So critical services first in years 1 through 3, and then 3 through 5, we'd be looking to reopen the OR. So hurdles to reopening the OR are gonna be the license designation. An REH can't have surgical services like that. An inpatient mental health hospital can't have services like that. So can we potentially redesignate it as an ambulatory surgery center and then reopen the ORs as an ambulatory surgery center after we get them credentialed? And we can do outpatient surgical procedures with an observation stay of up to 24 hours. That would be extremely beneficial. That is a hugely viable option. So it just comes down to what CMS and Ohio State Department of Health is gonna approve. So they might say, no, this is all one continuous building and structure, there's no physical barrier. And so we're not gonna approve this as an ambulatory surgery center and an inpatient mental health and REH, you're triple dipping. But it certainly, would make sense. Cause I've run into this in the past, we shut down ORs because they're so not viable. They would take over $1 million in just like HVAC repairs, because they were getting so humid that you had to pump water out because the humidity would just collect in there. It was an HVAC system issue. It's gonna cost over $1 million to just fix the HVAC, let alone everything else that the water destroyed. Even prior to getting beds, surgical supplies in there, all other costs. So in that situation, it wasn't viable. In this situation, as I understand it, the surgical suites are pristine, they're great. So it's much more of a viable option here. But I would definitely try to pursue it. You can get urology here, you can get some minor OBGYN procedures here, you can definitely have arthroscopies here, with, outpatient recoveries.
You mentioned that fire suppression group, do we have an estimate? At one point in time, I heard 200,000.
I've heard anywhere from 750 to $1 million to do the entire facility. I've asked for the Terracon report. We didn't have them come through. Another health system had them come through, and they're very hesitant on sharing all the information. I called the Excel group today, who I'm familiar with. I worked with them for almost 20 years to do all of our fire suppression stuff in the hospital. And kind of picking their brain to see, this thing was inspected by Joint Commissions, it was inspected by the state of Ohio up until the day it closed. Well, we're assuming in 24 it was still inspected. We know it wasn't 23. So what needs to be done? I mean, the lines aren't bad, the sprinkler heads aren't bad. Is it a panel issue? And I gave them the price on this upgrade. The only thing that Excel can come up with is the NFPA 25 regulations have changed. And so they're currently updating Toledo Hospital, which is massive compared to CMH. When I gave him the $750,000 price tag, he said they were about a quarter of that to do the NFPH 25 upgrades at Toledo Hospital. So I'm really kind of confused on what needs to be done with the fire suppression.
Who would pay for that? Is that us? Is that the leaser?
It'd be our building, so it would be on us.
Because originally we had discussed whoever leased it paying for that.
Right, with them.
Right.
But we've never had discussions with him and his group on how this would work.
We would have to have the fire suppression probably paid for. Because like Corey said, I have heard up to $1 million. And so that's significant. It's really, really significant. It's so significant, it almost calls into question, like, how much is the building worth? The fire suppression system's gonna cost you that much.
Yeah.
And also, why is it $1 million? So, from what I heard, after talking with Mercy, was, that it was an age of the system as opposed to an actual structural integrity, right? So Pipe's not broken, pipe's not rusted, as far as I know. It's that the age of the system necessitates its replacement. That's essentially what was in the report. I have had personal experience with this recently, same system, or I mean, same scenario, and it cost about $1 million to replace. Now granted, some of this was underground, so like the water main going from city connection to facility connection was underground, and that part had to be replaced as well. And I don't know if that would be in this instance, but, yeah, it was, $1 million.
I'm thinking if it's that kind of price, it has to deal with all the pull stations, the strobe, the lights, and the panel. Because like, all of our stuff, your sprinkler heads get inspected so often, you have to have a air test every so often, hydro test every so often, you gotta do an internal pipe inspection.
And it's not like it's drained, it's,
No.
system's still full.
Those are all 5-year, 7-year, 10-year inspections, all depends on which one it is, and
Like I said, if it's, Toledo Hospital is much, much larger. So, yeah, even the Excel group had no idea, just because it's been shut down for a year, why it would warrant a complete replacement.
I won't say some of those panels, the main panel, they go obsolete.
Sure.
It's technology.
Sure.
And sometimes you gotta readdress every circuit, every strobe, every horn, every pull station, every smoke detector.
Sounds like once it closes up, you're no longer grandfathered, what it sounds like with anything if you go to reopen.
Revalidation, inspections are much more, the first one's always the worst. And then subsequent are, they almost go like, oh, you've passed the past, year, 2 years, you're gonna pass this year, it's cursory inspection, so.
So I guess part of it is this auction is going on right now, and you haven't seen the building. Say we buy this building, let's just say you're gonna see it and then not.
No, so it was operational. The only thing that would prevent me from operating it is if it were not suitable to be occupied. Right, and I've seen some pretty rough rural ERs and, but, Corey's been in there with some degree of an inspection that's been performed, right? And then I also spoke with Mercy, and they had their own inspection, the Terracon inspection performed, right? And so, there were no, significant outstanding issues other than the fire suppression system that was identified. And that's like a sleeper thing that you can't walk into the facility and go, oh, this facility's not viable because of the fire suppression system. So someone went and sought that out and probably went and looked at the date on it that it was installed, so.
No, it's just from obviously I can't operate off of verbal, so that's why I'm trying to make sure we don't get into this and.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did tell Corey is that, I think that your guys' bid, earlier or last year was way too high, especially with that information, with that insight. With that, I also told Corey before everyone got here that I don't think there's any other bidders at the auction. Because if you see a hospital facility without an active hospital license, that is a money drain until a hospital license is, provided.
Well, and overall, I think if it was gonna be bought, someone would have come to the table by now, but.
Yeah, and I think the auction house reaching back out to me the day after I called them and they said no, and they were trying to, play hardball and then called me again right after. I think that's also kind of tells us a little bit, but.
Well, it went on the auction at noon today, there's still not a bid on there, so.
Yeah.
Justin has a question.
I would like to say, and you guys know that the hospital's been a touchy subject with me, and I don't mean that negative, but I truly believe what you are saying 100%. The town will end up with the hospital for free. And one of the reasons is nobody can buy it unless you're a government entity, because I can't even get the taxes figured out on that property. I'm registered for the auction. I'm not buying the auction. I'm not buying it because the taxes are gonna kill it. And if you guys get into the water or the fire system, it's like you said, it could be huge money, it could not be. I want Hicksville to thrive. I want somebody like you to come to our town. I'm into real estate, so you know.
I was about to ask, are you a developer?
Yes, at the end of the day, it's about the lease and it's about if you're personally guaranteeing it. And what you guys just set up there, if Parkview buys it, our community wins. If Mercy buys it, our community wins. If nobody buys it, you guys are gonna get this building for free, because what's the receivership gonna do with it? You guys are in the middle of a chess game. You're just sitting there waiting.
So,
The patients will win and you'll get it for free. And hopefully then they can come to you and say, sir, we'd love to have you come back to our community and put in your needs.
well, we already know Mercy's not a player, you know, they bowed out, and I don't believe money's an the money for acquisition, I don't think is necessarily high priority for them. You know, they could have paid $5 million for it if it were gonna be a viable entity that they were gonna run. Yeah, and I don't know how, is Parkview bigger than Mercy here? Oh, it's bigger than Mercy, okay.
I've been in meetings with Parkview, so you guys know, and they told me, and you've probably been in meetings with you guys, is they don't want such a big overhead. They wanna come to the community, they wanna have a small presence. Now, if they are lying to me, that's fine, and if they buy it, our community's great. Now we don't have the overhead, and then they have a building. I heard Corey saying, I'm not against Corey. One of Corey's goals, which I think Corey's a great visionary for this town of trying to steer it, is to try to get all the offices under one roof. Well, if Parkview doesn't want it, maybe you guys can work a deal with them, but I truly wholeheartedly believe nobody is gonna buy this building. It's not a race. I've watched it too, Eric, it's still at $250,000. And Crexy's been calling me.
Is that what they do? They start
I had to call it.
pounding you?
I had to call it that.
I think someone's only gonna bid on it in the last 2 hours, that's when all the action happens.
Somebody's gonna try to steal it, is what they're gonna try to do.
Sure.
But I go back to it, and I said this in the last meeting, you know, I bought Casa Grande, and I went home and I thought, man, I bought an awesome deal, $40,000 for a building. Cost me $750,000 to bring it up to code. I'm in the same scenario with Charlie's right now, I just bought the local tavern. In Charlie's, the fuse panel box, the electrical box, they cut the 3-bay sink out. And the fuse panel box sits right where the sprayer is that you would spray. Now, they pulled the meter, and if I don't touch it, it's okay. But as soon as I touch it, I've gotta redo the whole building. Well, I'm not gonna have the 3-bay sink with the electrical panel right there. I mean, my dad probably did it 20 years ago. But once you open one can of worms, it's like all the worms jump out of the box. And I've done it twice. My wife's not real happy. So I wish you guys the best, and thank you for coming on. It sounds like you've come a long way.
That's
From Oklahoma?
Yeah, I fly a lot though, we
Gotcha.
cover actively Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, and California. So I do a lot of travel, you know, provide guidance and leadership to the different providers, but, you know, this is important, this is fantastic, this is a great opportunity. It's,
I have nothing in this. I have faith in our council to make the best decision. I wish you guys the best, all of you, and I wish you the best in life, so
I
good luck.
appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Other questions? Thoughts?
Thank you for your time.
No,
It was a great presentation.
Excellent presentation.
No, glad I didn't worry you guys, but yeah, I guess find out what happens with the auction, and then based on the outcome of that, then further discussions about being the operations and management.
Do they have a reserve minimum bid?
250.
They'll sell it for $250.
No.
That's the
There's a
opening bid.
reserve.
I was gonna say,
There's
that's,
a reserve.
That's the opening.
Now,
yeah.
Philip did say that he alluded to, he was like, well, what if they, you know, what if something happens and they remove the reserve? So I don't know. But he talked about the receivership and stakeholders, and he has to do what's in their best interest, and I don't know who the stakeholders are of the receivership, 'cause,
Probably the employees, they're still
Oh,
$2
yeah.
million,
Public
over $2 million
retirement.
in.
yeah,
I mean, there's lawsuits for some of that money.
yeah.
Litigation.
Yeah, I was thinking it would be like, oh, were there any like silent investors that held stake in the hospital?
No, no. I guess with all that, again, Doc, thank you for being here, thank you for traveling. If there's no more questions of him, at this next point, I guess council has to make a decision. Are we, with 2 days, are we even interested in putting a bid on the hospital, right? And if we do go that direction, then I would think we'd have to go in executive to talk about kind of amounts and different things like that. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a decision council has to make first and foremost. You know, we looked at that many directions, many ways, opportunities. So. What's your thoughts on that?
I'd love for the hospital to be open, but I can't, I'm not a fan of, buying it. When we talked last time, it was, dealing with having something in place, a signed contract. And we majority voted last time to proceed with the purchase, and next day, we didn't have an agreement anymore, and that was the whole point, was we're not gonna do it unless we have that. Initially, I wanted the ER to be open, but everyone I talked to said, you're the first one that said, maybe year 3 or something, most of the other ones said, no ER. That's because doesn't make money.
Well, I'd say when I found out the auction was only 2 days and we had Dr. Fisher coming up here, I was disappointed because we had really no time to do any due diligence and looking at leases and contracts if we were moving forward with definitely going to be a bidder. And then if we were awarded the bid, who knows? I mean, like I said, everybody hits the last 2 hours, right? That's when everybody comes out of the woodwork and sees where it's at, kind of thing. So.
But like you said, we buy it and Corey needs more space than what they want to give up. I mean, then we're buying it for,
Right. Well, to me, the hospital's first. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
our space would come in second.
He's already said
by far, right.
we don't have space in there.
Buying it for the community.
Right, is one, definitely the first goal.
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to be 30.
Yeah, it's a 2-dayer.
I thought it was 30-day too.
I will throw it out there.
Oh, no, it's on there just in the time left to bid.
Did it?
Yeah.
We're open to signing a contract, an operations management contract with the timeline that we outlined here. The opening of the ER is only contingent on, reinstatement of the hospital license. And that happens over, 3 to 6 months, which is enough time for the rural emergency hospital to be, designation to be granted as well. So, especially since you've held critical access designation in the past, stepping over to the rural emergency hospital is actually easier to obtain than the critical access designation. So, the rural emergency hospital, stipend is the only thing that saves this hospital from, it makes it a viable entity as opposed to a complete loss, like a charity, as far as the service. So, but yeah, we would be open to signing that if you guys need that in hand.
1 day, 15 hours, 54 minutes.
A 2-dayer.
Lot to think about.
See, we're still back to who's gonna be, I'm rounding off.
If the town can buy it for $250 or below, you guys stole it. And no private citizen's gonna be able to buy it, because the taxes will be, who knows? I mean, I looked up Leon Nyhard's old house, her taxes on that's like 5,000 square foot, 24 grand a year. Imagine what the taxes on a 100,000 square foot building for a private citizens would be. That'd be almost what you paid for. But you guys, being the government entity, you don't have to pay the tax on your building, is that true?
We pay a portion, we pay the Hicks lights tax,
Gotcha.
but not a full real estate tax.
That's what's gonna keep the private sector out of buying the hospital, is the taxes, it's not the price. I mean, as you guys know, 250 grand's probably, you can't buy the ground for that. But then if you just wait though, you might end up with it for free, but then you might not, so it's like, gosh.
Well, I'll be honest, I had a phone call, I've had people say they wanna buy it. They were looking at other opportunities for the building, but I said our goal was to, one way, shape, or form, try to get our
Get
hospital back.
medical in
Right.
town.
And then with thinking of all that, I said, just saying if, just throwing this out there, but if the village isn't able or deciding upon purchasing, would you be willing to partner with another entity to kind of do the same thing you're doing now with us? I mean, a property developer kind of thing. Do you work with other cities when you buy these facilities, or do you work with other entities too, private?
We have
Property developers.
investors, if we buy a hospital, if we buy a property outright, this is with more due diligence though.
I meant to lease from somebody else. Right now, you're saying if we buy it, right, you would lease from us.
Yeah.
If we didn't get it, would you be willing to lease with another?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's,
I mean, so looking at that other side makes sense.
yeah, it's just, do they have the same intentions?
Right.
And then also, are they, are they another management group?
Right.
So who might try to open up another acute care facility, and it's just gonna, circle the drain, again. Yeah, no,
I came here about Charlie's, I didn't even know this was happening, just so you guys know. But what you're saying, if I would buy it, would you lease it from me and then I give to the town of Hicksville square footage for them, because it's huge, the building's huge. And then I give to Hicksville, a square footage they can put all their offices in. If I
Yeah,
would buy it, would you lease from me and I give however 27,000 square foot of your building to Hicksville?
if I only have to pay $250,000 for it, I'd buy it too.
Right.
But I know, but that's, I'm not exaggerating, like, I would buy it for $250,000, but I don't, from what Philip said, the reserve on it, I don't know if they're gonna remove it or not, and I think it's around the $2 million
Gotcha, okay,
mark.
alright.
That's what he led me to believe, but he's an auction house,
Right.
so.
I'm not trying to get in, I'm just trying to make a win-win for everybody.
And that was kind of my question, if another entrepreneur or business development team came in, would they be willing to release, or work with you?
So we've got a development arm as well, like we have several large developments, it's like, but it's just the lack of due diligence with this impending, doom fire suppression. There's a couple of things that doom things, the fire suppression, the electrical, and HVAC.
We've had an HVAC audit, and there's a decent amount of money.
167,000.
That's not even the worst. Like, I've
Well,
seen-
no, I'm
yeah,
saying, that's still something we'd be looking at.
Some
Yeah.
some recommended roof repairs, 20-some thousand,
Yeah, total it was
200,000
Yeah.
183,000.
Oh, for HVAC and roof, or just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
combined.
Yeah, so that's not terrible for
No.
what you get.
But the roof was gonna be a Band-Aid kind of, it was a 3 to 5 year fix.
Oh, yeah.
So we still have some major expenses coming up. And I'm not opposed to what you're presenting at all.
Is it like
We still
metal
gotta
roofing?
pay.
Do they do metal roofing in Ohio?
Pretty flat, I think.
Yeah,
I think you have to-
Yeah.
But most of that's that rubber roof, it's a flat roof, yeah.
If it didn't have a reserve on it, it'd be more exciting.
We already know what we're gonna get. We don't-
What happens if it doesn't sell?
Have another
I-
option?
I asked the Bradley company
Mhm.
before it went to auction, like, if it doesn't sell, what happens? And he said it could go to auction, which it is, or it would go to another receivership and they would try to market it.
I see.
Or they would try to move it, so if it doesn't sell at auction, it's a great question. Nobody really knows.
Right.
What about like a creative solution? Right, like giving it to us to turn around, like get an active hospital license with some sort of do a lease to own back from them.
Oh, yeah,
I will put my
kinda
kids to
like-
bed, my wife's ready to kill me. Yeah, kind of like a creative option, like lease to own, let us actually make it do what it's intended to do, and then, I don't know. Instead of putting the burden up front on,
Yeah, they have to be the
everyone.
easiest to work with, I can tell you that.
Kind of quiet on that stuff.
You know?
But, with that all being said, there's been some great points and great conversation on it. There's a lot to think about, but we're at kind of the critical time of, if we're motioning to bid, we need to do it now and put that on the table. And my thought was if we went ahead with that option, we would definitely need to set a limit of how much we would be willing to pay. My thought on that, and I didn't know there was a minimum, a ceiling on this, but a reserve. But if we're able to get a lot less than what we were initially offered, then we can put some of that money towards the infrastructure improvements and make it a more viable structure and kind of thing like that. That's the only thing I was gonna. So, at the end of the day, it's up to you guys.
If my group buys it, would we have access to the funds that are set aside for infrastructure improvement for the hospital?
That's a
How much
state
is in
question.
our revolving loan?
We don't have that kind of money.
Well, no, but for improvements, we would
What,
have,
$500,000? Is that right?
Yeah.
Job creation.
right?
This is the limit on each loan.
How much do we have
Just give them
available?
all money.
Well, no, I get that, but we need to use up some of that money and no one's asking for it. And there's gotta be like, Erica's creative, right? CAC and,
But back to your question, that's a state question. I mean, we changed the structure of the original gift from pool to possibly this purchase
Yeah.
to be utilized. They didn't say no to it, but they would have to come and see the whole package and what we were doing and how we were doing it with, because we said partnering with a hospital, right? And that's, they want a rural health care up here, that, you know.
are you familiar with what he's referring to, the grant money?
Yes.
Okay.
No, but yeah, that's when, you know, we reapproached them with that, Corey, and, they weren't objective to it, but
That's
they
like
just
taking
can't say, yeah, go ahead and use it wherever you want, you know.
Yeah, it's
we'll
like
go.
taking candy from a baby, you know, you'd be looked at real sideways if you say no to a hospital, but instead you wanna fund a pool.
Right.
I'm just, you know, saying it out loud.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean.
Does it cost us to sign up to bid? I mean, is there a fee to join?
It's, you gotta put $10,000 down, which we can put on a credit
Non-refundable.
card. You can put a credit
It's
card
a
in there.
hold.
It's just a hold.
Okay. As a whole.
So like if you win the bid and then we back out, they keep our money. So I created an account, we're to the point to where we need to put the hold on there, but I haven't went that far until you guys say, yep, let's do it. Or if you say we're not gonna do it, then we just don't finish out the registration on it.
I think we
There's too many
should.
unknowns on it.
I really do. I think the town needs a hospital, and, with Josh's, management, I think.
Are you making a motion? Is that what I?
I'd like to make a motion, yeah, to bid.
Well, do we need to set an amount before?
Well, that would have to be executive, we can't do that in open
Well, I
session.
know,
No, but,
Do we do that before we vote, is what I'm saying.
how's that work? What would we do? I've never done this before.
Well, if we vote, we're moving ahead, and it doesn't matter what.
I would say you have to set the limit. for it,
Yeah,
because
I was gonna
otherwise,
say.
So
if he says make a motion for 250,000, yeah, but if he's saying 2.25 million.
5 million.
No.
So, but if you wanna go in executive to talk about a ceiling, or we can do that. And if we can come to an agreement, then come back in and go the other way. Right.
Make a motion, we go into executive
He was on the.
session to discuss property,
Yeah,
purchase
usually,
land.
reserve's not gonna come off. of-
Eric, are there any seconds?
Second.
CR what?
Roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Coletta,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yep.
Conley,
Yes.
Egley,
Yes.
Sirdike,
Yes.
Thank you.